This is the story of a miracle that happened here where I work, on the Green Mile.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ryan Cam, and welcome back to the 1999 Project. And I know you're probably saying to yourself, this seems a little early. Well, there's a purpose for that because this is going to be another busy week for the 99 Project. But in light of that, I'm going to single out one movie that I have to cover this week because of how much of a beast of a movie it is across, like, no matter how you slice it. It is The Green Mile. It was directed by Frank Darabont. It was based on the serial novels written by Stephen King and starred Tom Hanks, Michael Clarke Duncan, and David Morse, among others. And to join me for that, returning from talking about Sleepy Hollow, it is from the channel Movie Fan Z. It's Zach Shelton. Zach, how you doing?
Good. I'm a big Tom Hanks fan, and I definitely had to do a rewatch for this. But I'm glad to be on here talking about this movie.
If this combination sounds familiar, directed by Frank Darabont based on Stephen King, that means that Frank Darabont also directed a little movie called The Shawshank Redemption, which I mean, it's comfortably like in the greatest of all time conversation, in my opinion. But this is also, like I said, based on the serial novels written by King. Tells the story of a man named Paul Edgecombe, played by Tom Hanks, who is the he's basically the head of death row on in a Louisiana prison, which is named the Green Mile because of the green floor. One day in 1935, they receive a death row inmate by the name of John Coffey, played by Michael Clarke Duncan. Despite the fact that he is built like a house, he is unusually nice. And throughout the movie, you kind of see that maybe he's not exactly who like his outward image claims him to be. So I'll be the first to admit this is my first time watching this. I had seen the ending of this movie quite a few times in a specific scene which we will get to. This is my first time cover to cover watching it. Zach, I was kind of destroyed by this one, which is why I singled it out to review this with you solo, because the movie's 3 hours long and it just, like 3 hours and 9 minutes to be exact, it does not let up. It really doesn't.
No, see, and that's the thing. Like originally, that was going to be like the one issue I had is that it is long, and like it could be cut somewhere. But then when you watch it, it's just like where would you even cut it? Because it like it moves at such a good pace throughout the entire movie that like you can't really cut any scene. And sometimes you need that length to really tell the story.
Exactly. And I'm a big proponent in that the runtime on the whole doesn't matter as long as you fill the runtime with interesting things. And I've seen 2.5, 2 hour 45 minutes that are just about as interesting as the wall like off to my right, your left. However, there was not a moment in this movie where I was like, this is getting a bit long. Like something is going on. Like it starts out in the past with the older Paul Edgecombe, and then it throws you straight into the action, I guess, for lack of a better word, and then it just pours it on, and just you're either like you're either like you're invested, and then you're worried, and then you're angry, and then you're just overall sad. The movie just runs the gamut of emotions, and it all works. It's all fantastic.
Yes. Yeah, and I think the first thing we have to talk about are the performances. Like everybody in this movie gives a great performance. The three that you mentioned, Tom Hanks, Michael Clarke Duncan, and David Morse, but Michael Jeter as Dell gives a great performance. Um, the guy that plays Percy, we'll get to him later because I have notes on him, and even Sam Rockwell, it like he works too. So it's just like everybody works in this movie.
In my research, come to find out, Stephen King had initially envisioned in a movie Tom Hanks playing Paul Edgecombe. So in an interview, he said, when Frank brought him up, I'm like, oh wow, what a coincidence.
Yeah.
Initially, Michael Clarke Duncan credited his role in the movie to Bruce Willis, who he starred in the year prior, a movie called Armageddon. So there's a bit of a connection there. Also, my research come to find out that Shaquille O'Neal allegedly turned down the role of this, which I have nothing like but respect for Shaquille O'Neal as a person, but it would not have worked if Michael Clark Duncan had not played this role.
No, because he brings that emotion that you need, and it's just like that quiet emotion too.
Also, another name you brought up, Sam Rockwell, and we'll talk about him a little bit later. Another name considered for Wild Bill, Josh Brolin.
Yeah, I could see it, but I again, it's another one of like knowing the range that Sam Rockwell has. He works so well with this.
Yeah, and Josh Brolin is a very talented actor. Let's not get that twisted. I mean, Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, No Country for Old Men, Only the Brave, which was directed by the guy who directed Top Gun Maverick, a movie that I think is severely underrated. Check it out if you haven't.
That's the firefighting movie, right?
The Grand and Mountain Hot Shots, yes.
Yeah. I remember watching that. That was an amazing movie too. So
So Brolin is talented, but Rockwell crushed it, and we'll get to that in a second.
yeah,
But Tom Hanks is, I mean, predictably great here, and just how he starts out, very start of the movie, his character, like we see the elderly version of him, of Paul in this nursing home, and then he's like Ellie, I've got a story to tell you, and then we go to Paul Etchcombe having this urinary tract infection and just like him just going through it. And
yeah,
then he meets John Coffey and is like, there's just something like, there's something about this guy. And Edgecombe treats his job like a job. It's weird to picture him in a role like this, but he has a rough job, but he brings compassion to the
yeah.
job. And I appreciate the spirit of that.
One other performance that I didn't bring up because this is another note that I have is James Cromwell as Hal. I guess his boss.
He's the warden.
Oh, Ward. But it's like look at the when throughout the movie, and you see the chemistry between Hal and Paul, and like that just draws you into, and it's just like they have such good chemistry, those two, that you can't really see anybody else in those roles either.
No, you can't. And also, I was talking to my friend Russell from Notorious by Chance. Shout out to him. He's been on this channel before. I was talking to him offline about the Green Mile, and he and I were talking about it and how James Cromwell plays a warden in this movie, and yet he also plays the evil warden in the Adam Sandler Longest Yard film.
Yeah,
Talk about similar roles, but way different tones and ranges. It's just funny
yeah.
to me to think that Cromwell played a warden of a prison, but like one's The Green Mile and one's Adam Sandler's The Longest Yard.
Two very different movies.
In many ways, yes.
Yes.
But I guess should like we shouldn't delay it any longer. Let's talk about Michael Clark Duncan because he's the best part of this movie, and it's not even close. Like Tom
Yes.
Hanks is great in this movie, Sam Rockwell's great in this movie, but Michael Clark Duncan, he just understood the assignment here. And also in the 99 Project coming up, because we're filming this before Friday, but coming up in that episode, I'm covering the Cider House Rules, which features Michael Caine, the guy who won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. Michael Clark Duncan was also nominated.
Yeah.
Michael Clark Duncan got robbed, and I like Michael Caine as an actor quite a bit. But Michael Clark Duncan, he should have been like suing somebody, be like, hey, I was way better in that movie than that guy Caine was.
See, it's kind of funny because you brought up everything I was going to say. That Michael Clark Duncan was nominated for supporting actor, and I feel like he was the best performance of that year of the people like that were nominated. And again, no shade to Tom Cruise and Magnolia, but like Michael Clark Duncan, like that was his movie. And like you said, Tom Hanks is good, but your eyes aren't drawn to him like they are to Michael Clark Duncan.
I won't get too deep into it here, but let's just say that Cider House Rules is problematic for a lot of reasons, but I'll touch on that when I review that on Friday. But just for clarification, In that year's Oscars, the nominees included Michael Caine, Cider House Rules, which he won, Tom Cruise for Magnolia, Michael Clark Duncan, like we talked about, Jude Law for The Talented Mr. Ripley, which I have not seen, but I will be reviewing that soon, and Haley Joel Osment for The Sixth Sense. So that is an eclectic group right there of
Uh,
styles and tones. Like it's just a crazy, like that's a crazy supporting actor race right there.
and it's kind of funny. Like people might say, "Oh, like Haley Joel Osment might be like number two." It's like no, like
Watch The Sixth Sense and you will be proven wrong.
no. What I'm saying is Michael Clark Duncan, I think, does a better job than Haley
Oh,
Joel Osment. Yeah,
I agree,
that was what I'm
100%.
saying. So,
And
uh,
like we're talking about, like you talked about, Michael Clark Duncan brings something to this role, like this like sort of it factor. You can't teach it, you can't show it, you just have to have it, and he has it. The movie kind of does the red herring thing of like showing that, yeah, he, like at the very start, like, yeah, he's nice now, but he did something pretty bad. And you see the inciting incident which happened, which I did not expect to see that. Like
yeah,
in this movie, like in Shawshank, you didn't see what happened with Andy Dufresne and his wife and her lover. Like you didn't actually see it, but there, you actually see John Coffey in that whole scenario, and you're just
yeah,
like, this is not, this is not Shawshank, not by,
no,
not, this is not Shawshank at all. No, it's a disturbing scene. I guess that is my
yes.
point. And then you see like him getting to know Edgecombe and like they're sharing cornbread with each other, and then and something I wanted to bring up with you is you see like I guess the miracles happening. I wanted to like ask what you thought of those because I'm not entirely sure how to feel about it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. I have to
I
ask you
mean,
like, what did you think?
um, again, it had been a while since I'd seen this, but rewatching it, it definitely, it definitely was a shock to see them and to because like the first time he did it and like what happens to him afterwards, I was confused by it, but then like going on, it's like okay, I can kind of understand, but like it it definitely threw me a little bit for a loop, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, I guess that's what I'm inclined to say as well because like see what happens, I'll just lay one example out is that Paul's urinary tract infection. Like John Coffey heals it. He basically touches around the groin area,
Yeah.
and then afterwards, like he absorbs it, swallows it, and then the next thing you know, like flies or something pop out.
I think I read it was like insect spores or like something like that. Like
Some kind of flying insect, like you talk about, pops out of his mouth. I was just sitting there thinking to myself, what is this, a Candyman movie? Like, what are we doing here? But I guess in
yes,
the context of what they're going for, I suppose it makes sense. Just visually, it just is, it's strange to me. There's a lot of God references here, which is funny to me because Stephen King's a pretty noted atheist. And so he's like walking that path with the source material. It's something that requires further discussion, I guess.
yeah. So uh do you want to talk about one of our quote unquote favorite characters and that's Percy?
I suppose we should talk about Percy because
Okay, Percy to me it's weird because he is such a despicable villain that you just again he has no redeemable qualities and I think it's played to perfection, but it's just like it's someone that I don't know. It's hard to describe because it's like he does get his comeuppance in the end. I'm not going to say what it is. I feel like people have to see it, but it's just like it's somebody that you hate on like almost from the get go.
he's literally, he being Percy Wetmore, the definition of it's not what you know, it's who you know. He's a
Yeah,
character that is only in the position of that he is in because his aunt is married to the governor of the state. That's literally why he is there. And the only reason he's working death row is because he wants to see somebody die up close. I'm not making fun of him. That's literally
No, no,
the
it says that. See, and even hearing that, it's just like that. That's not something. That's not something a hero or a good guy would say.
exactly. And it's like it's sick. It's literally sick. And then one of the most infuriating slash sad scenes I've ever seen in movie history
Yeah.
is when Dell dies. And
Yeah.
just I can't properly describe it. I mean I'll probably show some like clips here just for context sake, but one simple decision and just it's shocking. Like it's one of those things where you're like, how does someone like get away with this? And he doesn't, but you're like verging on you're going a little over the top with this one. And it it's kind of like I think Darabont was trying to go for the whole dynamic what he created with Bob Gunton's character in Shawshank Redemption and Clancy Brown's character, like that two-headed monster.
Yeah.
And those two were way more effective because they felt a lot more human, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like when you watch that scene, first off, it is hard to watch, but
Oh, it's
also
like
you
terrifying.
want to like curse this at the screen because it's like, why is this happening to somebody like Dell who you come to enjoy throughout the movie?
Yeah, exactly. And I read a Letterboxd review that said, somehow in a movie full of prisoners, Percy is the one I like the least.
Yeah, and then again with I was gonna say, and then with Dell, you have to bring in the companion too,
Mr. Jingles, yes.
Mr. G, which I again talk about how Dell like you feel for him more and more. Part of it is because of Mr. Jingles. It's like you pair them up, and it's just like it makes him more. I don't know if you would say wholesome, but kind of in that way.
No, I see what you're saying, and it just and whoever were the animal trainers for this movie, I hope they got a raise because it was well deserved.
Yeah,
Like Mr. Jingles has no lines, and yet he like this mouse is like a character in the movie in its own right.
yeah. And then that interaction with Percy. That's all I'm going to say. We don't need to say anything else.
No, let's just leave it at that. But we touched on Sam Rockwell briefly. Let's bring him up again because I legit forgot that he was in this. I forgot or didn't know, like take your pick. But like when I saw him, I'm like, is that Sam Rockwell? And then sure enough it was. And like he is like just the problem child. He's
Yeah.
just he's terrible. Like the moon pie scene. Oh boy. And then like
Well, I was going to say even like his opening. It's just like and and what he does with all the different guards. It's just like that. That's a problem too. So
and he gets thrown in the padded room twice.
yes. Later on in the movie, when you learn more about him, it's just like that. It that makes it even. That's another despicable thing. But when you learn about more about him, so
And I think we can delay it no longer. Let's talk about the ending because the ending of this movie is just it'll rip your heart out of your chest. And I won't like go too deep into it here, but if you have seen this movie, you know the exact scene I'm talking about where John Coffey like passes away. And I just he it's just a terrible thing that has happened and it's just
yeah,
like you see it and Michael Clark Duncan crushes it and is like, I hate how they look at me. It's like bees stinging me. And David Morse is like, we don't hate you, John. Can you feel that? Like just goosebumps right there.
yeah. And then when you see all of their faces as they pan around, it just like you said, it rips your heart out when you see all of their faces.
Yeah, and there's the woman who's like, I hope he burns in hell. And I'm like, Yeah, just give it a little bit of time, then you'll like see what he's like going through and in that regard. And the one scene that just crushed me is when John Coffey's like, "Please don't put it over my head. I'm afraid of the dark." And like that's a callback from earlier where he's like, "Please leave the light on. I'm afraid of the dark." And so
Yeah,
that just like that you see like the machine turn on, you see Paul Edgecombe crying, you see Barry Pepper, shout out to him, he's
yeah,
crying. David Morse, whose literal name is Brutal, he's crying too. And
yeah.
so you can't make a scene like that nowadays. You can try, but it's like the perfect combination. Sun, moon, planets, all the stars coming together to perfect alignment in that moment, and you just can't replicate something like that.
I don't think I could have said it any better.
I think at the end of the day, period, at the end of the sentence, I can understand why some may think like Shawshank is better than this, but Shawshank's Shawshank. It's one of, like I said, greatest of all time conversation right there. Green Mile is not as good as Shawshank, but it's like a 1A, 1B situation for me. It's
I was
getting
gonna
in
say, like you kind of like they're similar in several ways, but I don't know if you can really compare them. They're two really good movies.
exactly. And I think what it boils down to is that Shawshank somehow is less dark than Green Mile because Green Mile is a lot more dark, in my opinion, than Shawshank, even though Shawshank has some pretty screwed up stuff. I think you can agree,
Yeah,
Zach.
I can definitely agree.
I think for me personally, though, I'm giving Green Mile an amazing grade. It's a very long movie. It's 3 hours, 9 minutes long, but trust me, set aside the time and watch it. It is a phenomenal piece of business. Michael Clark Duncan should have won the Oscar. And yeah, like I said, I don't think like Frank Darabont needs to direct movies again. I don't know what has happened to him. I don't know if he's retired, but it's a shame because I think he would crush in today's landscape.
Yeah. So what would be your score if you had to give it one?
Like I give it an amazing grade on my scale, but in like numbers, like 5 out of 5, like easy.
Yeah, I would also give it amazing. It might be a little bit lower for me. I think I would still give it like a 4.5 out of 5. So it's still up there though. So
No, that's still very high. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you think of the Green Mile? Let us know in the comments. We would love to read what you have to say. It's a bit unusual for the 99 Project, but with a movie like Green Mile, I made the call of I needed to make this stand alone because I felt like without going too deep into spoilers, I needed to go a little more in depth with this one. So I set this one aside. This will be up. I'm gonna aim for Wednesday, and then Friday will be the standard 99 Project episode where I cover the rest. But let us know in the comments what you let us know in the comments. We'd love to read what you have to say. Zach, thank you so much for joining me. This is a great discussion, and I think I got your channel name right this time.
yes.
Movie Fan Z. My bad on that again. I'm
No, no,
sorry.
you're all good. Yeah, thanks for inviting me on, and I'm willing to come on anytime for another discussion. But this was a great, a really good discussion.
Your channel's linked in the description. What do you got coming up?
Really nothing. Just follow me on Letterboxd and YouTube at Movie Fan Z, and that's where you'll see my upcoming movie reviews.
Yeah, definitely go and do that. And this coming Friday will be the standard 99 Project episode, among which is going to be a bunch of movies that will not be as good as The Green Mile. Like, I'm just spoiling it now. But just for the sake of a bit of a preview, among the movies I will be covering is I had to suffer through Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, which that was just a bundle of fun right there. And then the Patrick Stewart version of A Christmas Carol, so stay tuned for that. But for Zach Shelton, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you on the next one. Take care.